What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Big Five Pod, episode number 83. I'm, of course, your co-host, Kyle Morello. Next to me, my other co-host, Jake Copestick. Cope, we got a little bit to go over in this episode. First and foremost, we are recording this on Wednesday night, just after the 76ers beating the Miami Heat 105 to 104 in the first play-in game, which means that your Sixers, I know you haven't been paying attention to a ton of NBA this year, but your Sixers will be facing up against my Knicks in the 2-7 matchup of the first round of the NBA playoffs. I got the Nate Robinson uh, St. Patty's jersey on here. Cope, how are you doing? And we have to go into battle now.
Yeah, I guess we do. And you're right. Like I haven't really been invested in the NBA at all. This is the least invested I've been in the NBA ever. Just because I've been so big into college basketball the last 2 years and really but with what we've been doing, been so focused on that, just haven't really had time to even watch any games. But anytime I get a chance to break your balls and about one of your teams losing in the championship, which has pretty much happened every single year since you've been alive, I'll take it. I'll take it. So I'm looking forward
Not
to it. It
even
should
pretty
be a
much.
really good series.
Not even pretty
Um,
much.
yeah, I mean it should be a really good series. Great game tonight, by the way. Great
Yeah.
Sixers
Oh,
Heat. Great game. What a game.
phenomenal.
Really, really good game. Sixers coming back from down double digits to win a close game at the end. So yeah, it should be a really exciting series. Best Knicks team in um I don't know how many years would you say? I mean, this is the best Knicks team in a while. It seems to be a really good
Yeah.
Sixers team that seems to be underseeded. If Embiid was healthy, they'd be a lot better. So it should be a hell of a series that I think would feel. I think this feels more like I think like the series will be so good it will seem more like a second round or a
Conference
conference
semi.
final
Yeah.
series than a first round. These are two really good teams.
Yeah. Best Knicks team since 2012, 2013. We won 50. I don't know. It was in the 50s. I don't remember exactly how many, but that was when we lost to the Pacers in the conference semis in 6 games uh, with Carmelo Anthony. And that really old roster, honestly, it was a very old roster with Jason Kidd. Um, who else am I missing? Steve Novak, of course, the legend. Chris Copeland, your GOAT. I know you love Chris Copeland.
Tyson
Yeah,
Chandler,
Yeah, Wilson or Tyson Chandler, excuse me. I think Landry Fields was still on the team at the time. Uh, now I'm just naming old heads at this point. But yeah, that team, J.R. Smith, of course, Mont Shumpert, but that team was really good. This is the best team since then, though. First 51 years since that team. This is going to be an incredible series. Um, I think the Knicks are probably a more balanced team. I think obviously the best player is on the Sixers. We have a guy that's not too far off though, and Jalen Brunson. So it's going to be, and I think we arguably, I mean, Joel and OG Anunoby are probably neck and neck as defensive players in the series. I'll probably give an edge to Joel, but OG Anunoby is a weapon on the defensive end of the basketball. So it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle. My official prediction: Knicks in six. Knicks in six. That's
okay.
what I'm saying. We'll see. It might be a little generous. Knicks in seven. That could also very much see that happen. We're gonna go Knicks in six though. Anyway, you guys are not here for NBA basketball as much as we do love to talk about that. You guys are here for college basketball. You're here for Big Five basketball. And first and foremost, right now, you're here for Cope's quick hitters. So Cope, you know what to do. Get into those quick hitters. What's up?
So I don't have NCAA ball in me, but I do have my NBA never flat that I always have here. But we do have some
Tis the
quick hitters
season.
to go over.
Yeah.
So the first, how about we start out the last episode talking about Jay Jones committing to the University of Pennsylvania. We're going to go across Market Street. Drexel landed 2025 big man Ralph Akuda. He's a 7'1" center. This you want to talk about a big fella. This guy is a big fella. 7'1" center from Hargrave Military Academy in Chatham, Virginia. Fun fact about Hargrave Military Academy. Kevin Keats used to coach there,
Hmm.
both as an assistant and as a head coach for a long time. They spoke to him a little bit about the Final Four, about that. He would drive the bus, he washed the jerseys, he did everything for Hargrave Military Academy. So Drexel with Amari Williams leaving, they're going to bring in Ralph Akuda as a developmental guy that I'm sure will play minutes in his first season, but will also be a guy that hopefully they can keep down the road. We'll talk about the transfer portal. You never know what can happen with that. But he is originally from Ejohnsville, Maryland. I think that's how you say that, right outside Frederick. And he chose Drexel over North Alabama, Eastern Kentucky. the Southern Utah Thunderbirds, and the St. Bonaventure Bonnies. So Drexel not on the board yet with a transfer, Kyle, but they did just land a commitment. Funny how with all this transfer portal news, we opened talking about freshmen committing. That
Yeah.
seemed like that would take a back seat to all the transfers. But Drexel landed big man Ralph Akuta. We'll talk more about this, Kyle. I want to touch on this now. Fran Dunphy coming back for the 2024-2025 season. I asked him after LaSalle lost to St. Bonaventure in the Atlantic 10 tournament if he was going to speak to Ashbury and talk to Daniel Allen about his future. And he said that he would when that time came. They're not sure, and that decision has been made. I actually say pretty quickly. But with these coaching moves, you have to move quickly because if you're going to bring in somebody new, you need to give them ample time to fill a roster, start recruiting, make sure they're not behind the ball here. But Fran Dunphy coming back, Kyle. Fran Dunphy coming back. And then lastly, sticking with LaSalle, not exactly basketball related, but when I was a freshman at LaSalle, Kyle, they had baseball. Haven't since then. Or maybe they did my sophomore year. COVID hit. They cut it. Baseball is back at LaSalle
Go.
University, Kyle. They announced today, Ashbury announced that women's acrobat and tumbling, baseball, women's rugby, and women's triathlon will be added for the 2025-2026 academic year. He said the plan was to hire coaches to recruit this upcoming year, and then the following year get back into competition. So baseball is back at LaSalle. And just an overarching theme here, Kyle. You look at these sports being added. Glazer Arena now going to be ready for the next season. Ashbury's come in there, Kyle, and he's just straight up got things done. He has come in there and he has everything that needed to be done. I mean, the arena project was a big talking point for a very long time at LaSalle. He came in there, bam, they got plans. It's going to be ready for next year. He's not wasting any time. He's straight up just gone in there, got things done, and executed the plan. So huge props to Ashbury, and then also bringing back Dunphy as well. I mean, he hired him too. So yeah, this guy. If you're a LaSalle Explorer fan, you have to be excited about all this for your athletic department, but you have to be thrilled that you have a guy like Ashbury in there because it seemed that I know COVID was a a huge detriment to schools everywhere, but specifically LaSalle as well. So it was kind of tough to get things moving, I guess. But Ashbury just gets it done, Kyle. All the guy does is get it done. So huge for LaSalle. But shout out to them because I know with baseball, they had Dave Portnoy to come do a pizza review. They tried to get him to fundraise to get the team back. But it wasn't like a one-time payment. It had to be sustainable. It just wasn't at the time. But they're reinstated now. So Hank DeVincent Field will be occupied by LaSalle University baseball once again.
We
So credit
love
to
this.
LaSalle, credit to Ashbury. And it's been a little slow. Kyle, let's talk some transfer portal.
Let's talk some transfer portal. First and foremost, though, definitely, I know we'll talk about this later, but love them bringing baseball back. Love them bringing Fran Dunphy back. We'll get to that later. Yeah, transfer portal. The madness is not stopping, though. It definitely wasn't as busy as it was last episode because I think that was, fresh off the national championship. That's when stuff really started moving around. So, yeah, not as busy as it was a week ago. Still busy nonetheless. Still a lot to talk about, specifically on the Villanova front. So we're gonna get into that right now. First and foremost, Trey Patterson, who had entered the transfer portal, is committed to Rice, so he will be going to an Owls in the AAC, but not your Temple Owls. He, you know, was always a player who we thought, could maybe be a major contributor for Villanova. Unfortunately, had some injuries. Wasn't really able to crack the rotation all that much. So this is a good opportunity for him to get some major minutes down at Rice. TJ Bamba is entering the transfer portal. It's it's an interesting one. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if I was going to say that. I'm not 100% sure, like, why. I think defer to you for that. We'll talk about that in a second. This I can definitely see why. Derek Dixon declaring for the NBA draft. He's playing at the Portsmouth Invitational. So he's going to have to require a waiver to retain his college eligibility. I'm not sure if he's going to be obtaining that. But they are getting someone in Cope, Tyler Perkins, making the first uh, Big Five transfer in quite some time, coming over from Penn. Still has 3 years of eligibility left. So Cope Villanova making a ton of moves. Which one do you think is the most impactful? Obviously, Eric Dixon declaring for the NBA draft, I think we can all agree is the most impactful. Um, but which one do you think, for this upcoming season will make the biggest difference right off the bat here?
I'm gonna say TJ Bamba deciding to leave. I think it was kind of it felt like Dixon wasn't going to come back anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
Feels like he's ready to pursue a pro career, and whether that's the NBA, the G League, potentially an international career. I know it's kind of people. I think people think that you can just go over to whatever international team you want, but there's passport quotas as to how many Americans you can have on your team. Believe there's also a tax for American players as well. So it's not as easy as just, oh, well, there's a bunch of leagues over there. If I don't make it here, I'll go play there. Like there's certainly some level of difficulty to doing that. But it seemed like it was a given he was going to leave anyway. Being at Nova for 6 years is a really long time.
yeah.
To be in one place for 6 years is a long time. And you look at the Villanova team now. First of all, it's going to be totally different next year. I mean, this team is going to look nothing like it did this past season, with people leaving, people transferring, uh, graduating. Guys like a Jordan Dumont's going to come in next year who redshirted. Nana Njoku gets hurt, doesn't play the whole year. Longino had his injury troubles over the 3 years he's been at Nova, but last season as well. So they're going to look totally different. And I think TJ Bamba, as a guy come back for his fifth year, was a guy that you could look at and be like, all right, well, at least that gives him one starter that comes back. At least it gives him somebody. And now he's leaving. And I'm not really sure why. It seems like Villanova has an ample amount of NIL money to pay him. I don't know if the fact that he leaves Washington State and they have a great season and they go to the tournament and they win a game and Villanova misses the tournament altogether. I don't know. I really don't have an answer for you as to why he decided to leave. And I think Tyler Perkins will be good here. He's got 3 years of eligibility left, but that's not really a given. And that he's going to use them all. I think he's a really good player. He might have a pro shot, but also with the transfer portal as well. I mean, he's going to be on a second school in the 2 years that he's been at college. Like, could he leave for another school like that? I think people look at that 3 years of eligibility and it might look great that you can develop this guy, and he played really well in the Ivy League and he played really well against Villanova when they played in the Big Five Classic. But I don't think you can bank on anybody staying for any amount of time here. I don't think you can in today's day and age in the transfer portal. But for TJ Bamba to now leave, you miss out on another starter, a fifth year who had the option to come back, and now he's going to enter the transfer portal. Some shooting, offense, defense, big, strong guy that with some athleticism that can get to the basket. Like, to me, that one was a surprise. I really
Yeah, I
thought that he
agree.
was going to come back. So I'm more shocked by that when it seemed like Tyler Perkins, when he set up his visits and he committed very quickly after he had visited Villanova. Um, Seemed like that was going to happen. But I'm going to say that the TJ Bamba move is going to have the biggest impact on that. But of course, Dixon is the way better player and the
Right.
bigger loss.
But we
But
knew that that
going,
was potentially coming.
yeah, I'm not really surprised by the fact that he's going to go to the NBA draft. And with the Portsmouth Invitational, you do need the waiver to come back. It's not an easy process to get back into college once you've gone through and you've played there. So, yeah, I don't know what this roster is going to look like. I know Dakota Lefew from Mount St. Mary's was just on campus. He's also got a visit to Syracuse, I believe, but they got 5 spots open now for transfers. So this team's going to look completely different. It'll be interesting to see what happens here. But yeah, TJ Bamba was a surprise. I definitely did not see that one coming. And that kind of came out of left field. I think is going to have a pretty adverse effect on them because I didn't even think for a second he would transfer. I thought he was definitely going to come back.
Yeah, me neither. I definitely agree that that was the most surprising. I think Trey Patterson you could see because he just wasn't getting the minutes, was hurt. I could see that. Eric Dixon, even though he had the eligibility left to come back next year, it's a great player. Like you said, been in the same place for 6 years. Could see him going to the draft, and he did just that. So that doesn't really surprise me, although obviously we wish Eric Drexel would come back. TJ Bomb is definitely the most surprising. I mean, it seemed like this was kind of a match made in heaven when he transferred in from Washington State, and It didn't quite work out for Villanova last year, but they were right on the cusp. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure what TJ Bamba is thinking about where he wants to go next. I forget if there's any schools that were said to be involved off the bat here, but uh, yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. Now for replacements for him, I know obviously Perkins is coming in here, but uh, I think I saw Aiden Mahaney's name being floated around as a Villanova potential suitor for him. I've seen Jeremy Roach's name floating around on Twitter as maybe mutual interest between him and Villanova. Do you think either of those are A, possibilities, and B, feasible and would be a good situation for Villanova?
Yeah, I mean they're both really, really good players, and especially in Roach's case, he's a fifth year that's been to a Final Four. He went to an Elite Eight this year. Wouldn't say he's like elite in any area, but he's very solid in a bunch. He can shoot the ball. He's a quick twitch guy who can defend, can get to the bucket as well. Like watching a lot of Duke basketball, like he is a very, very solid player, and to be able to pick up a fifth year with as much experience as him is huge. And I also really like Aiden Mahaney's game. Can shoot the ball really well, can take command of the game, and run the point for it ran the point really, really well for St. Mary's. However, I did see something, and I'm going to look this up to get the coach's name. Michigan is also, and Dusty May are in on Aiden Mahaney.
Yeah.
And Aiden Mahaney, one of his assistant coaches at St. Mary's, just took a job with Dusty May at Michigan. So I would imagine that could be a front runner
Yeah.
for Aiden Mahaney. They're both really, really good players.
Oh yeah.
Especially Mahaney. I mean, for the WCC Player of the Year to be in the port after they got a 5 seed. They had a very good season. Obviously, we're upset by Grand Canyon in the tournament, but there's over 100. There's going to be over 100 schools in on this guy. It's going to be very hard to get Aiden Mahaney a visit and get him on campus. But they're two really good players. They really need a point guard. That, to me, if Mark Armstrong goes through with the draft process, that becomes the biggest need. It's not replacing Eric Dixon. Is you need a point guard.
Yeah.
You need someone to run the point because all the guys that they have coming in, Mosley and Malcolm Thomas and Matt Hodge, like these are all wings and bigger players. Even with the freshmen coming in that are going to probably have to play big minutes as it stands right now. They need a point guard. So I'm sure they're going to go after these guys really hard. But for a fifth year in Roach and a really good player in Aiden Mahaney, just won WCC Player of the Year, there's going to be a lot of schools in on these guys, a ton. So I think they would be good fits. I think they could certainly both play in the Big East, but there's going to be a lot of schools in on these guys. I mean, I wouldn't even be shocked to see Roach end up at a Kentucky, a Kansas, or something like that, just because fifth year guys that have played that deep in the postseason on really good teams like don't really hit the portal often. So I think they could be fits, but if you want them, you got to get in a really long line.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Between the two, I feel like I don't want to say Mahaney would be the better fit. I'm not 100% sure about that. I think it could be just because his shooting is insane. Um, and with how many three-pointers Villanova shot last season, and it looks like they want to do that. I think that would be a good fit. I think Roach might be the more realistic one. This isn't me basing it off anything other than my gut. Um, I think that could see that happening, but again, gonna have a long list of suitors. Gonna have a very long list of suitors. So will they get any of them or either of them rather? I don't know. I have no idea. But definitely something to keep an eye on if you're Villanova and company. All right. One more before we go back to the little Salle train here. Lamar Odom Jr. transferring from Drexel to Charleston Southern. Uh, Obviously Odom Jr. is a pretty decent part of the Drexel team last season that finished in the top three of the CAA. So this is a decent move going to Charleston Southern that will affect Drexel. So Cope, what do you think of this move of Lamar Odom Jr. going to Charleston Southern?
Yeah, so probably a place that he can play more. Charleston Southern, their head coach, he stepped down in the middle of last year. So Sod Nimbley, who was an assistant on that staff, is now the head coach there and is now building the Buccaneers back up. But he's also from down south. He's from outside Atlanta. So maybe this is like a regional move for him. He gets to play a little closer to home, I'm sure, with with Salle being a first time head coach in D1 and having to put this team together now with a lot of transfers. Probably a place he can play a lot, and for an experienced guy like him as well, I'm sure playing time is. I'm sure he could get it at Drexel as well. But again, like you spend these guys that have a fifth year, you spend 4 years in one spot. Maybe you want to go elsewhere and see what else is out there.
Yeah.
So obviously Drexel's gonna miss him, but they're also gonna miss a lot of guys. It's crazy how different Drexel's also gonna look next year. Just talking about how their team's gonna look. They bring back 11 of their top 12 from last year, and they might bring back. I mean, you're talking Shane Blakeney, Cole Hargrove, and some younger players here, but they might bring 3 or 4 guys back
Yeah.
from the top 11, 12 last year. So, um, I was shocked to see that many guys from Drexel hit the portal. But this is probably a place where you can go play closer to home and get a lot more playing time as well in a small conference as well in the Big South. So not like this is like an Amari Williams or Justin Moore transferring, but still a solid big body who played a lot of years at Drexel leaving. But I don't imagine they have a bunch of NIL money down there at Charleston Southern. But again, play closer to home for a first year head coach, get a lot more playing time. Seems like it could work out for him. But overall, like Drexel might even look just as different as Villanova does this year. I mean, the two of them are going to look night and day from what they were just a season ago. So that's what my big takeaway from that is that who knows what they're going to look like. I mean, Villanova and Drexel are going to have to work the portal a bunch and bring in a bunch of new guys and get them to mesh and play together by the time October, November rolls around.
Yeah, it's gonna look a lot different for Drexel. Obviously, we talked about the Villanova too, but maybe even more so for Drexel. I mean, their identity, obviously, Amari Williams was a really, really big part of it, but Justin Moore, Mar Odin, I mean, all of these guys who are leaving were huge parts of their success. And now they're gonna have to replace all those minutes, all that production. It's gonna be extremely hard. And I feel like they're one of their first times really navigating the portal like this. Obviously, they had, their entire team pretty much returned last season. So this is unfamiliar territory for Drexel. So we'll see how Zach Spiker and company does in that regard. But Cope, we promised the people we would go back to LaSalle train. So why don't we go back to LaSalle train? Seems like we're not the only one. Seems like there might be a couple other people going back. Obviously, Fran Dunphy being one of them. And I don't think that impact can be understated. Obviously, he's Mr. Big Five for a reason. Uh, Incredible coach. I think he's coached LaSalle to be even better than people thought they were going to be, and they didn't think they were going to be that good, and they really weren't that great, but respectable, definitely. In the A10 the last couple of years. And now Brantley seemingly coming back. Brickus, I know, is still seems like he's on the fence. I know he visited VCU on Sunday, but definitely in consideration, especially with Fran Dunphy and Brantley on the way back. Cope, how do you see this playing out on LaSalle here? This seems like things might be shaping up for the last dance.
Kyle, I think there's as good a shot as ever. I mean, Khalil Brantley put on a story something along the lines of the grass isn't always green on the other side. And he's had some really good offers. He's got some interest from San Diego State, who's going to lose Darion Trammell, and a guy like Khalil Brantley, who's got more vertical pop, who can shoot, who can defend the point of attack and be like the little kind of water bug perimeter defender and pest that Darion Trammell was. I actually thought San Diego State, like that role would be perfect for him. And he could go to a place in a good conference that will win and make the tournament, and he'll make NIL money. But it seemed like LaSalle is as good a situation as he could find. He's now going to be in his third year under Dunphy, his fourth year at LaSalle. He's got the keys to the offense. He wants to be a premier defender. Well, he can draw the best perimeter player every night from the other team and do as much as he can to influence winning. Like, he can have as big a role as he wants on this team if he decides to come back. So maybe that post is him realize. I mean, I'm sure like LaSalle might have been an option for him anyway. I mean, we saw Deshaun Shepard put his name in and come back last year, so it wouldn't be the first time. But if you have Khalil Brantley come back and then Jameer Brickus, he visits VCU. Now, VCU, Max Shulga put his name in the NBA draft. It seems like he's gone. Sean Bairstow, I believe, is out of eligibility, but Zeb Jackson's coming back. And they also have Jason Nelson moving into his junior year, who was a transfer from Richmond last year. So there's guards there. Joe Bamesteele is going to come back for another season. So there is guards there. So that's not to say Jameer Brickus wouldn't have a huge role because, hey, Ryan Odom, saw firsthand when they played in the A-10 this year, like just how good of a player this guy is. So I'm sure he'd love to take it, but also seemed like with some Trilly Donovan news and sourcing, like it seemed like Jameer Brickus was, not it. I just got the vibe that after his visit Sunday, it seemed like we could see a commitment pretty quickly, and it hasn't happened yet.
No.
So at this point, like I think almost no news is good news for LaSalle that you could bring these guys back and they could have one last run at it. Tunde Valberg Fasasi's coming back. They brought in a big in Demetrius Lilly. I hope LaSalle's not done. I saw F.A. Tamaz put his name in the portal today. He really only played in garbage time for LaSalle last year, but was a big body nonetheless. So if LaSalle can bring these two guys back, they can get another big man. And hey, Deuce Jones, how about him? You see highlights of him at the D'Onofrio Classic
I did not
the
know.
last couple of days. He dropped 50 points while he was there,
Oh
or
my God.
47, something like that. So hey, you got Deuce Jones as a freshman coming off the bench, not having to play like huge minutes, but can still score off the bench. And then you bring the Killer Bees back. You're gonna have some serious scoring pop next year for LaSalle. So I hope these guys come back. Because here's another thing, Kyle, look, the freedom that Fran Dunphy gives these guys to play and to score and create and playoff script. I don't know if you're going to get that necessarily anywhere else. I don't know if you're going to get that freedom because they played. This would be their third season, the trust and the time that they've spent together. I don't know if you're going to get that anywhere else. So I think Khalil Brantley's right. Like, hey, if you want to go make NIL money, and especially for Jameer Brickus in your fifth year, you want to go play somewhere else, you've earned that right. You've shown that you are a damn good player in the A-10 and can be a good player on a good team. So, he definitely deserves that right. But at the same time, like, if you want to handle the ball, you want to score, you want to create, you want to play with some freedom, and you want to play like the playground style that those two guys play, where they're really hard to stay in front of and are exciting and can open things up for teammates, create for themselves. Like, I don't know if you're going to get that freedom anywhere else. So I think Khalil Brantley's right. I don't know if the grass is necessarily greener for these guys, but if they want to get paid, different story. But the trust that Fran Dunphy has in them and the style he allows them to play, I don't necessarily know you're going to get that anywhere else.
I don't know either. I don't know either, Cope. I mean, like you said, they really have the ability to have this free-forming style of offense. And, obviously when shots aren't hitting, and this is with any team, but when shots aren't hitting, yeah, it might not seem as pretty. But when things are going really well for LaSalle's offense, it's nice to see. It's really nice to see. Now, here's the other part of that too. If they're coming back, they do need to add some shooters around them. I think those two will completely unlock an offense if they have the ability to drive and kick. Like they like to do that. The problem is LaSalle doesn't always have the shooters to back them up. On the perimeter, Deshaun Shepard's been like okay at that, and Mark Gill too. Like, but they're not great shooters. If you get someone who's, 37, 38% from three can really knock them down, or a couple guys are in that range, then you're cooking with gas a little bit on this LaSalle offense. Now, obviously, there's other factors of that too. There's their defense, how they fit with the team, all that fun stuff. But uh, I think part of this equation is being able to build around them to come back, but having them back first and foremost just makes this coming year so much more exciting for LaSalle. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, I'm with you that they've put in their time if they want to go try to make a little bit of a bag somewhere else, try to, be a little more winning. We're not going to sugarcoat and say LaSalle's been a great winning program the last few years. They haven't. But it's the potential's there for it this year. But I wouldn't blame them for wanting to go, make a little money. But I think coming back would be a great thing for them, for their games. They complement each other very well. And I know that Fran Dunphy would love to have them back. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens, but I could see a world where the Killer Bees are back on 20th and only to start the season, which would be something, Cope. It would definitely be something. Um, I think that's pretty much all we got. Like we said, a little lighter week this week. We had a crazy one last week. Not a ton has happened in this past week, so not a ton to go over. But Cope, any final thoughts here before we sign off?
Yeah, I mean, last week was when everybody jumped in the portal,
Yeah,
and now you still have guys that are. Um, I saw something that Jeff Goodwin tweeted along the lines of like guys are still like the portal's not done yet, even with like the 1,700 some names that are in there. Guys are still waiting for their last like NIL checks to clear. I guess I never even thought that that was a thing, but
I didn't
you know,
either.
now you're seeing big names like Roach and Aiden Mahaney hop in the portal. And there's been some commitments, albeit at like max schools and some smaller programs, but at least in the Big Five sense, like last episode we got hit with everybody jumping in. Now we're just waiting for the dust to settle. More people are going to hop in the transfer portal, which might complicate things a little bit more, but it's coming. We'll have a loaded episode. Hopefully we can have Riley Frayne on next week or the week after, and we can really break down who's committed when and where. But yeah, I mean, light one this week, but that's until the dust settles. And we get to see who's transferring in as opposed to who's transferring out.
Correct. Absolutely. And listen, we'll take our rest this week because we got busy stuff coming up with this transfer portal. It never ends, Cope. It never ends. It's honestly a little crazy. That's a discussion for another day, but it never ends. So yes, we're very excited for that. Hoping we'll have Riley on next week. If not, we'll have him on sometime soon. And we'll definitely have more guests throughout the off season and the transfer portal season to break down everything. Um, and yeah, so that's all we got here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in as always. If you want more content, make sure you like subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Big Five Pod, and of course, make sure you listen to our audio only versions on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And of course, let's go Knicks. And until then, we'll see you next time.